agents. So ourselves, I invite everybody to review your own personal plans. So we have in critical illness, we have different companies. We have, the ones that we use the most are Ivari, Industrial Alliance, Equitable Life, and all of them have different things. As you know, and again, you choose what is the right thing for your client, which is the most important thing, right? For if you go with Ivari, you know that Ivari has Maple, so that's an option right there. If you go with Industrial Alliance, has the return of premium and other things of features that you can get. With Equitable Life has a few other illnesses that are covered that the other ones don't. So we have options, and that is very important. It's a really good thing, really good feature that we have, so that we can choose whatever our clients' needs are, so we can pick all that. So the first person that is gonna come into the call, some of you know her, and actually she was in our call last Wednesday, and she tackled a couple of things about critical illness. But the critical illness that she talked about was her clients and cases that happened, claims that she's already had, and how things were going in, and the solution that we give to our clients. But in this case, Angela, she had suffered a critical illness herself, and I want her to come over, to talk to Angela and ask her a couple of questions. Angela, I know Angela since I started in the business. I remember Angela making phone calls and in the Capilano office in one of those decks back at the end of the office, and I was I really admire her because she was making phone calls out of business cards. And that's how she basically started her business. I remember her calling. I clearly remember Angela making those phone calls, and I was new. And I'm like, I was always in the warm market, and I'm like, how does she do that? How does she call it strange people that she doesn't even know, right? How does she have that strength? Because I'm afraid to call someone that I don't know who they are. And but she did, and you guys know very very well how Angela has been done in the business. She's so successful. I know she's in Texas today. She's been like, when I called her when we were on the phone yesterday, I said like, Angela, where are you today? Because she's everywhere, all over the world. But these are the options that we have in our business that you can build wherever you are. So Angela, welcome to the call. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It's a huge honor to be here with you, Efrain, and I'm excited to help a whole bunch of people through this call today.
Thank you so much. Thanks again. I really appreciate you being here. I know you're a very busy person, and you were in the call last time. So, Angela, I have a couple of questions. This is going to be kind of an interview with Angela. So, Angela suffered a critical illness, and so Angela, was the critical illness part of your personal plan when you started? How that happened? And if it's not, if it wasn't, how do you decided, I want to take it? Or how do you build it?
Totally. So I'll share. So when I started in the company, I wasn't sure about any of this stuff, to be quite honest. So Adam recruited me, and he sat me down and he said, let's get some insurance on you. And I said, I don't need insurance. He says, well, you probably need some critical illness. I says, I probably don't, because I have money saved. But if something happens, I have money. And he said to me, he's like, well, yeah, well, if something happens, do you want to see your bank account going down, or wouldn't it be better to have something else? And I was like, okay, well, this was my philosophy at the time. I'm like, sign me up for whatever it is that will get you off my back. So he signed me up for some like this basic like cancer guard, which is just, cancer, heart attack, great company policy. And I was like, all right, sign me up. I don't remember how much it was. It was super cheap. And I was like, perfect, that works. It keeps me happy. I've got something, and we're good. And that's where it started when I first started in WFG.
That's awesome. So then you got that simplified issue policy, and so what made you change after? Why? Because I know you did change the product.
So I'm so grateful. So because I was in the company, I hung around long enough, and this is why we're kind of an agent call. I hung around long enough, and I started to see other products, and I was like, well, this other product, I personally was with IA. I mean, they cover 25 illnesses. Well, that makes more sense to me than like 5. So I'm like, well, why don't I get this one that covers 25? And so that's what I did. I applied for the one with 25 illnesses, and I got that in place. I don't know, maybe it was 6 months to a year, probably after I started. So I hung around long enough to be able to switch it. And yeah, and then they switched it to the IA policy. And yeah, I'm super grateful, obviously, that I did.
Awesome, awesome. So what came to your mind, Angela, when you got the diagnosis of MS? What happened? When you felt that and you said, hey, you got this. So what was the first thing that came to your mind?
It's kind of funny. Actually, I mean, so going through the diagnosis was some of the hardest times for me because I didn't know what was wrong. Once they figured out what was wrong, I still remember the day. It was June 25th, 2019, to the doctor's office, and I sat down and he started going through my MRI and started going through this and going through that. And then anyway, came back in and finally he starts talking around and I says, hey doc, if this is MS, I have $100,000 riding on this being MS. So the first thing as I went through all of this was I get $100,000. So just that was a huge incentive, I guess, encouragement for me. And so that was my first thing. He's like, it is MS. I said, awesome. Let's get this policy. Let's see if it works. And that was kind of my first thought was like, all right, well, if we're going to get sick, let's get some money to help with whatever is necessary. And, you know, since then we've paid out quite a few claims. So I'm super passionate about critical illness.
Yeah, now that you talk about the claim, so it's impactful. I can imagine the process that you went through, you know, and then you knew that you were getting this money, and they finally said, yeah, this is what you have. So how was the claim right after that when you got, you know, because and the process for yourself, because this is a claim. I know you've done claims for other people, but how does it feel to do a claim for yourself?
It was crazy because I was my first claim. So I hadn't done any claims for anybody else. And then I started this process. And honestly, I don't know if anyone on this call, maybe if you're newer, you've been around a while, you've seen enough that what we do is amazing. If you started out, I was of the belief that insurance might even possibly be a scam. So my parents were very much about that. And so when I started the claim, I was actually terrified. I was really scared that it wouldn't pay out. Because I'm like, well, I read the fine print on MS and it says it needs like 3 lesions. And I'm like, what if I have like 2? And then they would be like, you have 2 and you need to have 3. And I was mad. My mind, I was still building a business. I was still going through stuff. And I was so terrified that it wouldn't pay out because it took a little while. I mean, we were in the first couple of years of the process of this policy. So it took a little while to, you know, check with all the doctors, make sure the diagnosis, all the stuff. And so because it was taking a while, I'm like, they're just going to say no. They're going to say no. And I'm like, how am I selling a product they're going to say no to? And it was a really tough time for me actually, because I was so nervous that it wouldn't pay out. And I was so scared of that, to be quite honest. And then I remember the day, it was December. I don't remember exactly what day, but I remember December. There was mail in my mailbox at the office, and I pulled it out, and it was from IA. And I'm like, oh God, they say no. What's it going to say? And I pulled it out as a check. And I've been just thinking about it. I start crying. I was super emotional. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this really works. They really do pay out. They really do give you money when you get whatever it is that you got coverage for. And I just remember being so emotional and like looking back. I remember talking to the product providers. I'm like, oh my gosh, you paid out. And they're like, of course we did. That's what we do. But I was like, I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know it actually worked. And when I saw it actually worked, I mean, yeah, 2019, 2020, our business grew 167%. That's not by chance, because I believe in this stuff so much. And after that, yeah, I don't even know how many, I think we're 5 or 6 claims in since that, which was 2019. So I got a lot of claims lately in critical illness. But just that feeling of like, it actually works. This is powerful. I wish I'd had more money. I was so glad I had the policy in place. I thought about lowering the coverage because I was like, well, what if I just do 50,000? It's so much cheaper. Then I didn't. And I'm so glad I didn't, because all that thought went through my head as far as like, man, I'm so glad that I had at least what I had, because if anyone's had a critical illness, they're expensive. They're just a lot of extra costs. Even though we're blessed in Canada, and I know there's Americans on this call too, in Canada, you know, we are blessed with a lot of coverage. However, not everything's covered. even your parking's not covered. That stuff costs money. Time off work costs money if people have that. You know, I have to pay for an extra benefit package that pays for my drug that I'm on. And that's extra money. So everything's extra. And most people are living paycheck to paycheck. So the advantage of this stuff is just, yeah, it's an incredible product.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so after I know the answer, but did you regret Adam being behind you, you know, trying to get you something there, you know, that at least covered 5 conditions, but after, you know, a year later you said, hey, now I should switch, right? I don't think you do. I
You
know the
know,
answer.
I have, man, you know, the only regret that I would ever have is that someone didn't try. You know, I know sometimes my clients say to me, I mean, I don't necessarily say it, but I hear it. They're like, oh, you're pushy. So I've learned to say, don't mistake my passion for pushiness, because I so believe in what this does. And the people that we have paid out, you know, they're just like, so actually just Saturday, I got another call, 39-year-old breast cancer. And, you know, they're just like, thank you so much for making us buy this policy. And I was like, well, I didn't make you, but kinda, I guess. I was like, hey, you got to get something. And so they did. They were friends of mine. And I'm, you know, this is what we do. We get good at closing. And I'm so grateful that, yeah, Adam got that one, got me recruited, because that's the most powerful thing you can do. Like I said, I know a couple people on this call. One of our newest recruits, she actually has MS. She's in she's a rock star. Check out her Instagram, Iron-Hearted Woman. She's doing an Ironman. She has MS and has a pacemaker. She just got started in her business. Incredible lady. But she doesn't have this business, but now she's building it, because the passive income, the residual income that you can build here is even more powerful than a critical illness policy. So close people on the critical illness and then close them on recruiting them, because the recruiting is where you really make a massive difference in someone's life.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And back to the how you feel when you have your first claim, your own claim and first claim. I went back in the time when I had my first claim, and I was barely new. I think I didn't even have a year in the business, and I felt exactly the same way you did. I was so nervous. I was doubting, is this gonna pay? Oh my God, I'm gonna quit. If I don't pay this, I promise this family, you know, all these things. And unfortunately, everything went, you know, perfect. And this family, this is my first claim. And besides that, this family with the plan that I built, that's how I got my 100K bank as well. So the way that we help people, we also get help, and we can reach our milestone as well. So Angela, so what was the first thing you did with the money that you got from the critical illness?
Well, being I'm an agent, what I did was I invested it, and I got paid for investing it. And then I took that money and I used it for my actually first solo trip, 2019, 2020 New Year's in Victoria. And it was an amazing time. Started a new tradition for New Year's of being offline and being by myself and reading a good book and that kind of thing. And it was an incredible time of just refreshing, thinking about life, going through it. And so that's what I did. I invested it. And then I used that money that we get paid to invest it to go on a trip. And, you know, that was really cool to be able to do that actually with that.
That's awesome. Okay, so you invested your money, you got paid as commission, then you use it for your trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like win-win.
Yeah, exactly. What else you can do something like this? And
right?
Angela, so after everything happened, you know, now you passed this, you had your claim, and you're working on yourself. I know that you've been working on yourself big time. So how do you feel after, and what did you learn of your own story?
I learned of my own story. I guess, you know, some of the biggest things was, like I said, to me, when I think back on it all, was just I was super grateful that Adam had recruited me, and I stuck around long enough to change my policy. First, that I got a policy, and then that I changed my policy and got a better policy. That somehow I was convinced by all the teaching like this that it was important to have it. And so just, just being able to get that just like, I get shivers sometimes when I think about like, if I hadn't, that would have been $100,000 that I wouldn't have got, which, $100,000 doesn't go very far. But it definitely goes farther than zero. And so, just being able to have that, if I didn't know, if I hadn't stuck, and then, going forward, I guess one of my biggest things is like when I talk to people, I use this story almost in every appointment. And I just sat down with two friends I've been following up with for about 8 years, and we're going to get some critical illness on them, which I'm really excited for, because they feel the passion. They feel that, I have a really hard time when I know that friends, like I have some people that have said no, and I've tried hard, and I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Like, I just want, and I have it in their notes, like they refused it, because like, I just know that 50% of people get a critical illness. The percentages of critical illness is so high. Since I got diagnosed with MS, I just run into people all the time that have something like that. And all of them, I'm trying to think, all of them that I haven't talked to have never got a payout. Like, I don't think any of them, maybe, I don't know. I don't remember anybody. So without our company talking to people, no one's talking to people. Lots of times, like the people I sat with, they have life insurance. We have an agent, we have some agents that I sit with, they get life insurance, which is great, but they don't have critical illness insurance. And I like the critical illness because we're still alive, we're still kicking. And this gives us the ability to maybe build a better life. So we don't have to, go down the other trails, and we're able to get better. We have the time away from work, and the time away, from all the things to be able to heal ourselves, if you will, I guess, and give that time to be like, okay, like I said, for me, I didn't have to take a lot of time off work, but if I needed to, I could have. And I probably would have needed to if the world didn't shut down the next year, and I wasn't able to be as laid back as we are now and work from anywhere and sit around and not have to be super active driving all over the country like we used to when we built our business. And that's another thing. I'm just grateful that I, built a business. Like I said, back to that, if you're building phase, build a business fast. We hit our 100K that year, and I also hit my 100K that year. So it's kind of crazy. Like we hit our 100K, and I got my 100K, $100,000 payout in the same year, which actually, I think about, I guess, made 200,000 that year. Made that way before I thought I made it. But anyway, so I guess that's some of my biggest takeaways is like, I'm just glad that I stuck around and that I got a policy in place, and that, now I can use that story. My team, I know, uses this story. There's very few people on our team that don't have critical illness insurance, because I just never want to, it's just so important to make sure that everyone's protected, and you just never know when something's going to happen.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And something very important that you mentioned, and I know, because again, what I said, I know you since I started, probably you started before, a couple of months before. For me, I don't remember, but I remember you being in the office, having long hair. I remember that. And your beginnings weren't easy in the business. I remember. And people now they see you so successful and getting close to $400,000 a year, but your beginnings were not very easy. I do remember that. And you mentioned something very important, guys, and listen what Angela said. She stuck around, she was sticking around, even though she was going through very tough situations in life, not building the business properly, but she was, resilient. She was focused, consistent. She was always there. And because of that reason, she was in the business long enough to realize that what she had was good, but she could get something better. And that's what happened to Angela. So Angela, one last question. So what would you, tell everybody in this call? What would be a message for everybody, in regards of critical illness, so that we change our minds more and be more, focus, or more conscious about the reality